Greetings and thank you for joining us for the AACUC Commitment to Change Credit Unions Unite Against Racism Friday conversation. AI-empowered financial wellness, strategically transforming personal and professional financial decision-making through modern tools. We're glad you're here. Now, please help me welcome our moderator for today, Andy Manthai, Change Cultivator, Green Path Financial Wellness.
Hello, everyone. Before we really get kicked off here today, I would like to take a moment and honor and spend some time with the chairman of the AACUC board, Chairman York. If you would please just take a moment and share a few words.
Absolutely. Good afternoon and welcome to CTC, call related to Financial Literacy Month and how AI impacts all of us. I am Marvin York, the chair of African American Credit Union Coalition, and on behalf of AACUC and our Commitment to Change initiative, I am glad you've carved out time to be with us today. We've gathered a great group of panelists to talk to us about something that is already shaping the world around us, whether it be invited in or not. Artificial intelligence is here today. AI is embedded in our search engines, our back office systems, our marketing tools, and increasingly in our financial decisions our members are making every single day. Companies are using it to price products, anticipate needs, engage consumers in ways that are moving faster than most of us can keep up with. That reality makes today's conversation not just timely, it's necessary. Our topic for today is AI-empowered financial wellness, strategic transformation, transforming personal and professional financial decision-making through modern tools. Is an invitation to expand how we think about what AI actually is and what it can do for our members and our institutions. AI is far more than a chatbot. It is lightning fast data analytics. It's personalized recommendations. It is potential to close long-standing gaps in both digital and access to financial education, gaps that disproportionately affects the communities that we exist to serve. Today, we will explore how credit unions can strategically harness these tools to revolutionize financial wellness programs, build meaningful fintech partnerships, and create member experiences that are more personalized, more accessible, and more equitable. I want to thank our moderator and panelists and everyone who made today's possible event. Most importantly, I want to thank each and every one of you for showing up, leaning in, and staying committed to the work of empowering our members. Now let's get into it. Welcome to AACUC, Commitment to Change. Andy, take it away.
Thank you so much, Chairman York. And I have been over the moon on this topic because I see it coming up so frequently in all of the discussions, the chat boards, the articles, everything that seems to be coming together is how are we going to figure out how this helps our members, how it helps our credit unions. And so we started to really be intentional about how we wanted to address this because it's not a one size fits all. And so as we started to do some of the planning, it seemed to make sense that we started to think about the concepts of one, what about back office efficiencies? Step two was, what about that member engagement, those deep connections? And step three is, how is the credit union creating their strategic plans around AI? So how does this transform how we're doing business, how we're interacting with each other? So with that being said, I want to introduce our panelists and share a little bit more about who they are before we really dig into some key questions. I welcome this as a collaborative environment. If there's anything that you'd like a little bit more information on, please chat that in. If there's something that really stood out to you and you said, ooh, I really need to earmark that. We know when we're in an hour, we're going to be up against it as far as time goes, and there's going to be a lot of information, a lot of questions. We also know we're not going to remember absolutely everything. So targeting in on, say, 2 or 3 action items that you really can take forward from this as you're thinking through your strategic implementations in impacting the financial health of all of those you serve. So first, I'd like to welcome Aaron Long, who is the head of business development at Zest AI. Now, Aaron, as head of business development, leads the company's efforts to really showcase that transformative impact of Zest AI's technology. He empowers the forward-thinking lenders to really think through modernizing their underwriting processes. And that way they can unlock the full potential of artificial intelligence in credit decisioning. Aaron brings more than 25 years of experience, though he doesn't look it, with deep expertise in the credit industry, having held leadership roles at American Express, Equifax, and Fiserv. And as a quick side note, I have begun to affectionately call Aaron the professor. I will be all excited talking with my hands. Anybody that's ever met me, I'm just all everywhere. But then Aaron speaks and it's time to listen. So every experience that I've encountered him in has this aura of confidence and thoughtful insight. So I am so excited for his voice on this topic today. So welcome, Aaron. Next, we have Shirley Sen, a potential familiar face to many, the Chief Community Impact Officer at New Orleans Firemen's FCU. Now, Shirley Sen, CUDE, many of you have that, best classes ever. She is the Chief Community Impact Officer at New Orleans Firemen's FCU, where she does advance financial inclusion and measurable community impact. As a former CDFI researcher, grant writer, and ALM enthusiast, she supports credit unions nationwide in strengthening community development strategies. Shirley integrates technology and responsible AI to really expand that concept of financial wellness and health, ensuring that innovation serves underserved communities ethically and effectively. She's founder of Purple Bridges and sponsor of the Fi Safe initiative, and serves as a brand ambassador for SafeU, an advisor to fintech and AI organizations focused on inclusive growth. And for those who have, and perhaps those who have not met Shirley, her heart for people is unrivaled. Her relentless curiosity, humility, and listening, and her active care and showing up for all people has forged the foundations of our personal friendship. She is an unashamed and bold light with a heart that's rooted in love. And I'm thankful for her and for the perspectives that her path has given her over these years in the credit union space that can influence this conversation today. So welcome, Shirley. And bringing all the things together here is a Blesson Abraham, CEO and co-founder of Aviary AI. Now, Blesson is the CEO and co-founder of Y Combinator-backed company building AI voice agent for credit unions and financial institutions. And we could spend an hour just talking about our journey to this point. Blesson did get a start in the industry at BCU, then went on to found Savvy Intel, which is a credit union analytics company that was acquired by TrueStage and now works with credit union leaders across the country on one of the most underutilized opportunities in this space, using AI to proactively engage members at scale. Blesson, on a personal note, quickly became one of my favorites when I had the pleasure of getting to know him over 6 years ago. And his heart for others is never lost. And he has this way of simplifying things in perspective, able to see pieces of the past, present, future, tying the human element and the technology together. And he and I share our fandom for the beloved Chicago Bears. So bear down, Blesson. Good, better, best.
Never let it rest. Till your good gets better and your better gets best, Andy.
All right. All right. I think we're ready to get started here, everybody. So the first thing that I wanted to dig in here is I want to start with Shirley. So Shirley, getting you on the spot here, from your perspective, in creating a deep, connective membership experience, what strategic questions are you asking about AI? And then how do you see it connecting with what New Orleans Firemen's Credit Union is attempting to do to provide really the most engaging and accessible experiences for members and prospective members?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, when you look at the size of our credit union, we're about 280 million, so we're still considered, I guess, a large, small credit union. But what you said, I think, is really important. It's the word strategic. And I think anything that we do in the AI space, member service, whatever, has to be looked at through the lens of our strategy, our strategic plan. And as I mentioned, we're kind of early in this AI journey. So I think our focus has really been on the right questions before scaling anything. And so we're asking questions like, who are we not reaching today and why? And, where are our members experiencing like barriers, whether that's access or understanding or just confidence on how to use the tools? And then how can we use AI to expand that access while still preserving the trust and those relationships we've built? Because, we started obviously working with firefighters. We've expanded. We have over 500 SEGs. We have 35 parishes and counties, underserved areas across Louisiana and Mississippi. And so each of them have different and unique needs. But one of the things that we have really taken a hold of in our communities is really being the hand holding and those personalized relationships. But as we realize, those member experiences as well as human experiences are changing. So we really want to make sure that actually we want to make that member experience human as well as having the balance of technology to ensure that we're helping to empower them as well. So I really think at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is remove barriers and create more inclusive pathways for both our current and prospective members.
I love that. So as you've been really navigating this, and I know just following you personally, all sorts of different interventions and technologies and things like that. What do you potentially lift up as maybe the top, 1 to 3 problems that you think an AI intervention could solve based on what you've learned about your members, as well as some of the technology options that you've been seeing?
Yeah, I think one of the first ones, especially in the communities that we serve, is access to credit. Especially when you're having to do manual underwriting or you're doing character and story-based underwriting, those are time consuming. And so how many members, are left or have to wait, for funding. And so I think that's one of the first ones we're looking at. And we actually went with Zest AI to help us kind of evaluate our members more holistically, which helps us say yes more to individuals who may have been overlooked by traditional models. So that really has helped us. And what our purpose is, our North Star is that financial inclusion. I think the other thing is that, we want to create this environment of the wraparound services for our member experience. And so I think anything that we can do that can help that. And so another area that we look at is how can we work in creating outlets for our members to have access to other sources of income or benefits. And so, we've looked at Starlight. We're getting ready to start with Starlight. And so, that's going to help in areas that are passionate to us, like housing, affordable housing, cars, things of that nature. But, really this helps us because a lot of times it's critical because financial stress often starts outside the credit union. And then I think, you were talking a little bit about the back office operations, and especially for small to mid-sized credit unions, a lot of us are wearing multiple hats and finding again that balance of being able to create efficiencies inside the credit union for, repetitive tasks. For example, a lot of that stuff can be utilized with AI to create those efficiencies so that we have the time to really do what we love, which is to have those face-to-face interactions with our members. So I think collectively, The interventions that we're kind of looking at, or I think credit unions need to look at, help us solve things for access and awareness and timing. I think these are three of the biggest gaps we see in member engagement.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's interesting when you say that, because I'm very excited to pivot to Aaron here in just a moment. But one of the things that I wanted to really think through and share out with everyone as you're listening to this conversation is that sometimes I think we get very excited about one type of tool. And so it's like, oh, well, it's this thing. We're going to plug it in and it's going to do this. But then it's like, well, but if we freed up time over here, because if we did this, then we could invest in this. And so sometimes I often feel, and I was terrible at trying to do double Dutch, jump roping once upon, like, it's like, where do I get, am I jumping in? And I always get hit in the head with the jump rope. And so I feel like that sometimes happens when we're trying to do that strategic plan. And so asking some of these key questions can sometimes give us some more focused clarity on like, okay, this is where I think we need to start because then it can bring this, or maybe these things need to run concurrently. Maybe they need to run side by side because it's going to give us an ability to strategize, pivot, be agile, and create some processes that we hadn't thought of when we first started looking at it too. So I've always loved how thoughtful you are in your inquisitive questions and as you're really navigating this. So I'm hopeful that as everyone's taking notes and being engaged here, that some of those things are influencing some of your next steps as well. All right. So Aaron, one of the interesting things was that Zest AI was really one of the first on the market. That was the first one that I saw that had AI in the name. And so before like the Chat GPTs and the Claudes and the Copilots, I'm curious, as you've seen the discussion on AI rise, and it's really risen to the front and center strategy. I don't know anything that I've seen in credit unions that doesn't talk about it right now. What have been some of the growing pains in helping credit unions navigate those strategic plans and adoption, whether it be privacy concerns, identification of ROI, maybe anything else that's come up that I'm not even necessarily thinking about?
Sure, great question. I want to thank you guys for having this platform, the AACUC, and Andy, thank you for that really great introduction. Zest AI came to the market, of course, before the ChatGPT moment changed everything. And that matters more than people realize. We started over a decade ago. And when we started, we had to build a case from scratch that the national score alone was leaving a lot of credit-worthy members on the table. And so that was our whole argument. We were competing against decades of comfort with that 3-digit number. And then 2022 happened. And suddenly every board packet had AI in it, right? And that created genuinely some new challenges for us. Instead of convincing credit unions that AI belongs in lending, we started spending enormous amount of energy helping separate what AI actually does from what vendors were really claiming it was going to do. And so that noise level became its own friction. So there were 3 reoccurring growing pains that we saw consistently. First was data readiness. 37% of credit unions out there right now report initial challenges when they have AI integration tied specifically to data quality or their technology infrastructure. And that number tracks to exactly what we see with our own pipeline. Institutions came to us extremely excited about the outcomes that they could possibly have. And then they realized that the loan data and inconsistencies across LOS migrations were incomplete across many product lines. And so we really had to have those honest conversations with clients on what it really took to actually build a model that will perform. Second, when looking into any new technology was the money conversation. How much does this cost? And so budget owners they wanted a guarantee before they had a baseline. And so we learned to really reframe that. And shout out to Shirley for mentioning us earlier, but we had to reframe the conversations, and we wanted to start with their current approval rate, their current delinquency rate, automation rate. And we customized a platform and results that once they went with Zest, they would know what the outcome would be to really justify, hey, this cost is meaningful and is something that they couldn't pass up. And then third and lastly was all around privacy and regulation anxiety, right? The NCUA's intention on AI has intensified, and rightfully so. The CFPB made it clear that there's no special exemption for artificial intelligence, meaning that creditors must be able to specifically explain denial reasons, regardless of what model produced them. And so that forced a real maturity on how we presented model explainability. It all also became our competitive advantage, Andy, for us, because our models were built from the beginning with transparency and required that in mind when we were going to market.
I'm curious if, just in a brief unpacking of any insights you come across, has anything shifted in the original problem that Zest AI set out to solve, or maybe any pivots in how you're approaching the work going forward from today?
So our mission as a whole, it hasn't shifted. So the Zest AI models have helped lenders increase approvals across all protected classes, right? We believe that as the credit system stands today, there has a lot of issues. And so approvals across a protected class like Latinos are 49%, Black applicants are over 40%, and we could keep going on and on and on. While keeping all the risk across the credit unions the same. And that outcome is the same problem we set out to solve on day one. What has evolved is really the surface area. So we've expanded from core consumer underwriting into fraud detection. We also have AI tools. We fanatically named it Lulu, that lets lenders integrate their own portfolio data and get strategy results in plain language. And so the mission that we set out to have is identical. The scope that it takes to fulfill that mission has expanded and grown.
Okay. Ah, I love this. All right. Well, Blessing, let's get you off the bench here. Your approach is somewhat unique in that it's member facing, and it incorporates this voice bot that can be programmed to sound like a person. And it's weird because it sounds like a person. It doesn't sound like a robot. It's insane. And so it allows people, it engages in ways that credit unions often just don't have the resources to do. What was Aviary's primary goal in adapting a tool like this for credit unions?
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Thank you, AACUC, for having this too. Great discussion. You know our story, but I'll just kind of explain our quick story. We actually started off as a consumer app helping folks that had items go into collections. So we built a voice agent for consumers, right, that were struggling with their finances was really the premise of what we started off with. Then when we started to show the conversations that were taking place to some of our old credit union friends, they said, hey, why can't we utilize that same technology to proactively contact our members? And so our whole thesis and our theory, and which has been proven out, is pretty simple. Regardless of if you're a small credit union, mid-sized credit union, large credit union, only 18% of credit unions are making some sort of outbound calls to their member base. Most of the time, if we're being honest with ourselves, we're assigning it to our branches. And these are the same people that have 80 different tasks to go complete, right? So they're probably not getting to these calls. Or if you've got a dedicated outbound sales team, they can only make calls to new members or for a limited amount. Obviously, everybody's got some sort of collections arm that's out there. So we said, hey, why can't we solve that? Why can't we use technology to make sure that members are proactively staying ahead, understanding all the value that credit unions provide to them? So we actually started off by doing new member welcome calls to say, hey, you're a part of this credit union. Here's the great services that are available to you. And we're always here to assist you, right? That was the premise of what we began with. What it expanded into was actually one of our largest campaigns when we originally launched in 2024 was around the hurricanes that hit the Carolinas. So Baxter Credit Union actually did this. 55,000 members were impacted by those hurricanes. They didn't have cell service, so they couldn't go to the digital app anymore. Branches were down. So there needed to be a way to communicate out to those members. So they reached us and they said, hey, can you reach out to members, 55,000 of them, Can you do it over a week period? Can you let them know about the different services that we can provide to help them during this period of time that they're struggling? And we said, sure, we can do it. We launched a voice agent in 4 days from the time that they asked us to do it, and we reached 55,000 members over a 7 day period, right? To notify them of what's actually happening, what's going on. And that continued on with the wildfires that hit California in late 2024. And then really what's happened is this is the game-changing moment, right? Now you can use AI to actually reach out to members, regardless of if you're a smaller credit union, mid-sized credit union, or larger credit union from their entire life cycle.
Ugh. So having sat in that seat as a branch manager, loan officer, well, it was almost 20 years ago, but at the same time, you're pulled in so many directions. You're pretty much working 4 jobs. I mean, it's never what your title is. That's just not credit unions. And so the thought of, okay, well, now we now have this army of ability to now be able to do that. And so what's so fascinating about each of these things is that I think a strong argument can be made across the board for, well, if we do this, this is going to, open up these accessibility and the growth that we have in income from the loans we're able to do now. We can expand relationships. We can do all of these things. Now we'll have more capital so that we can invest it in these other interventions. And then at the same time, it's staying deeply connected because we know loyalty with credit unions is a whole issue in that people they're like, well, what is different? It was interesting because Filene just launched the storytelling perspective, and they had scoured websites and saw like, is there a lot of difference? Well, if you're not engaging with your members regularly, are they getting wooed over to the cool thing that popped up on their Instagram feed? Are they getting, connected in different ways, seeing that the credit union is engaging them? And then you're still trying to help them make good financial decisions. So surely, meanwhile, while navigating these things is trying to figure out, well, how do we put tools in their hands that helps people navigate decisions based on how they think about money and everything else? And I don't want to overcomplicate the conversation, but I'm just trying to bring out the nuances of why this can get so muddled and confusing, and like, how do we create our strategic plan? So what I wanted to open up before I get back into some individualized questions is, as a general word of advice, what would you say would be the top 1 to 3 key questions that credit unions should ask of AI organizations? Or maybe another way to ask it might be, what would give you pause or be a red flag in any organization telling you, oh, we can do this. we can solve this problem. Are there ethical considerations, things like that? So I haven't heard from Shirley in a bit, so I'll open that question up for you, Shirley.
I think I'm going to say 3 questions I think every credit union should be asking when they're looking at their technology and their AI tech stacks. And one is, how does that technology improve outcomes for your members, not just efficiency for the credit union? If we look at it, if the answer is only about speed or cost savings, that could be a red flag. And then how is our data, our credit union's data, being used and protected? And then how's it explained to our members? Because transparency and privacy are not optional in this space to us, or I think most credit unions. They're really foundational to that trust. And then can you clearly explain how decisions are being made? So if it's a black box and the company can't articulate it in plain language for us to understand, that should also give somebody pause. But I think any partner that we're working with has to align with our responsibility to serve fairly and equitably and with accountability.
I love that. Aaron, we'll throw it over to you. What would you say are your top 1 to 3 questions the credit union should be asking?
Yeah, I think Shirley named some important ones, which were explainability. Also, how does the model perform for protected classes? But the one I'll speak a little bit more on is, what does your model do when economic conditions shift? And so every year, it depends on what the market is doing. We can have an election, it could throw it off. We went through a rate cycle and credit years ago. They were tightening their credit decisionings. And so we had to make sure that we stress tested every model in the market. Vendors who builds static scorecards, as I would put it, and dress it up with AI, could not answer this question. And so when you want to lend more, how can you change? If you want to be more conservative, how can you change? And so the model needs to be monitored all the time. It needs to be able to be adjusted. It needs to be kept calibrated against what your actual portfolio performance wants to accomplish on a consistent basis. And the other point is the ethical decision when it comes to lending is not a sidebar conversation, right? Credit unions serve communities. They have been they serve communities that have been structurally underserved, for lack of a better statement. And AI tools that unfortunately that replicate historical bias at scale do more damage than what manual underwriting would do, right? Just replace it. And so the bar really has to be, does the model make equitable lending decisions that not only the credit union can stand behind in front of the board, but the members, but also the regulators.
Oh, good one. Good one. All right, Blessin, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think Shirley and Aaron hit on two of the most, or their points were very, very relevant, and I'll just kind of piggyback off of both of what they've said too. So, first part is what Aaron said, which is like you're going to see a lot of vendors stating that they're AI now, right? Like they're going to claim it because it is the sexy thing. And I actually had a client tell us the other day. I asked them a flat out question. I said, "Why'd you guys pick us?" Right? And their point was they brought us back. So if there's younger folks in the room, they're probably not going to realize this, but there was a dot-com boom that took place, right? Where during a period where everybody became an internet company. And during that point was when everybody just decided to say they were an internet company. But you really have to identify, is the company actually based in AI or is this just a bolt-on for them? Is this actually their root piece of what they actually do? So really, are they saying a technology is a solution and they're chasing a problem? Or did they identify a problem and now they're utilizing technology to actually solve it? And I think that's where you're going to see a lot of players pop up and claim AI in a different, from whether it's on the lending side, voice side, chatbot side, back office side. There's going to be a lot of vendors that do it. And you guys really should be asking that question of, is this something that is at the fundamental belief or at the fundamental side of what this company actually does? Are they good at it? Is this what they're not just a dot-com boom, they're not just a dot-com push. So it's just to back up what, again, Aaron said around the piece of are they just using AI as a dressing and to really try to look for a problem where they have a solution, but not sure if there's actually a problem to go solve. And then what Shirley said, which is if you're truly an AI-based company, you're thinking about privacy, you're thinking about explainability, you're thinking about all those pieces so that you can make sure that you're CYAing everybody on the credit union side, right? You're protecting the credit union because that is your client, and ultimately they need to be protected to make sure that your technology is actually solving that piece.
Oh, it's so good. And you know what, when you say that, a yes and thought that I had was thinking through where information is being pulled and directed. There's all the LLM and generative and some of those different things. And sometimes what's out there, the sophistication of the copilots and the Claudes and everything else is sometimes more sophisticated than somebody trying to build it from scratch. So then it's like, are they just kind of like moving the chess pieces around the board, or are they actually figuring out the strategic pull for whatever data points to solve whatever points that they might be looking at as well? I don't know. I may be way off because I'm not an AI person, but it feels like that it can potentially show up in something like that, where it's like, oh yeah, we're AI. We just pointed at this thing, and then it's, but it's not actually doing anything unique or different or pulling in different data points and things like that. So, all right. Wow. Looking at the time here, Shirley, I am curious, since you are our Shirley beat on the street person, and really bringing in the credit union voice. I'm curious, has your leadership team and board identified any key focus strategies for AI evaluation? Maybe created an evaluation rubric or decided this is where we plan to focus first. Has anything like that arisen in your strategic development?
Well, we're still, in the early stages of kind of formalizing what that rubric will look like. And so I think it's really important for any credit union, but especially small to mid-sized credit unions or credit unions that may be strapped on resources, is there are good resources out there to look and engage with to kind of create a comfort of what you need to look at. But again, I think everything needs to go back to strategy. I was at a conference earlier this year, and the term shiny penny kept coming up. And I think a lot of us get caught on the shiny penny syndrome, and that, oh, that looks really fun or good. Our members will like that. But is it strategic? Is it something that really does align? And so I think what we're looking at is, while we don't have that rubric completely built out, we are aligning around a few guiding principles that really kind of shape every decision that we make. And I would say that, we're kind of starting with three core filters. Probably the first one is, does this expand access for our members? Whatever that looks like. Is it expanding the ability to have a better digital presence? Is it expanding the ability to have, better access to funding when we're not open as a physical branch? Looking at, does this improve or enhance, but not replace the human experience? Because the two of them still have to stand side by side. Whether, there are going to be some out there that say, hey, we've got to be completely digital. Others are like, we have to be completely human. And our world is evolving in a way where both have to work in the same environment, in the same ecosystem. So we look at that. And then again, looking at it, can we implement this responsibly with that transparency and trust? So I think putting it through those three questions, kind of that funnel, is helping us stay grounded so that we're not chasing every new tool. But again, it's helping us. And I think it's really important. There are groups out there that will help you in evaluating and developing these rubrics. I think one of the things that's been very helpful for me is putting myself at conferences that are outside of my norm. I've been so heavy in CDFI over the last 10 years that now this year I've been at a lot of technology conferences. And what that has done is it has helped me see things through a different lens. So working with groups like the Reseda Group, or with True Stages Discovery Fund, or Ignitify, there's so many different companies out there that are helping credit unions to kind of lay out on the table things to look at, and then you tailor it from there.
That's awesome. Would you say that as you've been digging into your data and your relationships with your members, are there 2 to 3 current problems, member challenges, pain points that you've identified to be a key focus? And then to try to solve those, were there any, even if you had just one example of a partner tool strategy that pursued, but just maybe didn't land right, didn't yield the results the member used, any of those types of things? And is there any wisdom on your learnings from that experience?
So I would say, again, just going back to how entrenched we are in working in the underserved, working with non-traditional borrowers, one of the problems that we try to solve every day is that limited access to credit for those non-traditional borrowers. So, we do know there are members out there who don't fit neatly into those traditional models, but are still financially responsible. So that's definitely been a major focus. And not to plug Zest AI again, but that was one of the major reasons that we went with Zest AI, is how can we increase our ability to dig deeper and to approve more loans, when we can look at things that are outside the perusal of what we're normally using in our underwriting. I think one of the others is just problem that we see is just the lack of awareness around those available resources. We keep hearing terms of financial stress, financial trauma, financial wellness, financial health, but so many are navigating those different concepts today without realizing the specific tools that are out there, programs, or even social programs that are available to support them. So, I know you and I, Andy, have had conversations about what GreenPath is doing and the neurodivergent community, and we're looking at, the LGBTQ community or elderly. So, we're really starting to see tools define themselves more clearly in markets to really focus on those unique needs. And then, just those gaps of confidence and understanding what's going on. It's not just about access, it's about helping our members feel informed and empowered enough to make decisions. And a lot of that has to fall back on us. We have an enormous amount of data that so many of us have not unlocked yet. And so I think understanding the transactions and using predictive analysis to be able to use that behavioral opportunity to understand and to customize and hyper personalize things for our members is going to be really important. So, while I say these are real world problems are driving our AI exploration, it's not the technology itself. And I'd say, you were asking me some problems or things that we might have encountered. Again, while it's good to refer and to acquire other credit unions' opinions, I think at the end of the day, you have to do your own homework. You have to do your own due diligence. And I would say while we haven't had any major failures, I think one of the things that, we need to look at is, again, just because a tool is available doesn't mean members are going to use it. And so one of the things that I have picked up that I think is a great piece of advice is that, creating focus groups. And instead of thinking that you have to take this to the masses, create that focus group of 400 or 500 of your members, depending on the size of your credit union, and hyper test it with them. Because this is not going to just help you understand, what your members are looking at, but getting that feedback. But again, engaging in opportunities to work with these fintech companies and AI to say, hey, is there an opportunity for us to do a 90-day pilot? I know we've talked to some where they're actually offering to us to allow us to use it for our employees for an extended period of time before we take it out to our members. So, for us, we want to make sure that the excitement doesn't overshadow the responsibility that we have to ensure that we have good, responsible technology, and it's our members' money that we're investing in this technology. And if they're not using it, then we're not getting a good return on their investment.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. One quick thing. This is about the quietest CTC Friday chat I've ever seen. So either I feel like we're really missing the mark, or we have you so deeply engaged that it's quieting everyone down. So if you have questions, please use the chat. The other side that I would throw in there too is I think it's really interesting on insight gathering. One of the tools that we'll use is usertesting.com. They have like 5 million people. You can set demographics. You can do all sorts of different things and strategically ask questions about people's interests. So we did this with a small business boot camp that we're building educational content around. We engaged 100 different small business owners, anywhere from like 1 year to less, 1 to 3, and 3 years more. I was able to put it into Copilot, give it all sorts of different things, spit out all these different like connections. And we got so many insights on like what people were hungry for, where they needed to find information and that. And so, finding these different ways to gather insights, if your members aren't filling out surveys, et cetera, can also be a key part of that. I do want to get Aaron and Blessin right back in here too. I was wondering, because you actually do implementations with credit unions and understanding, trying to break through the noise of multiple projects and hats and everything else. Where do you think the best place for a credit union to start might be? I'll go ahead and I'll throw it over to Aaron first, and then we'll get Blessin's thoughts on that too.
Sure. One, I think they have to start. I think that's why these conversations are so important. They have to start somewhere. We're in 2026. And so if you don't have AI, this type of technology, you've got to start in some different, in some way, shape, or form. We think lending and how you communicate and how you interact with your members are probably the top two areas to start, which is why I think, having this today is key. Shirley mentioned earlier the data, right? And so for the most part, the data that the credit union has already exists. And so if you have it already, it's how do you partner with someone that can use it and customize it and make it readily available for you all to make it more efficient and to do what you want to do, whether it's automation or whether it's approving more people. Some quick data stats. So 90% of the banks today and credit unions, they plan to adopt AI within the next 5 years. But Andy, only 18% of the regional financial institutions have already successfully integrated that into their operations. So again, that's why we need to have these conversations, because that's a big gap between intention and integration that's real. And so the most often bridged by starting with well-adopted problems, coming up with a strategy, pick a product, pick a pain point, and then try to prove out that outcome. And so, I think lending, of course, and reaching out to members, but in this day and time, you have to start somewhere with this new technology, not only because your members deserve it, but also how do you compete in the marketplace without it.
Yeah. What about you, Blesson? Where do you think?
Yeah, I think the first thing to realize is I know the fear that are our members ready for AI? I can just tell you guys something, throw that out the window. Your members are ready for AI because they're actually using AI on a daily basis more than you actually realize that they're actually using AI. Every commercial from Apple and Google is them talking to AI. Every commercial that you see with Alexa is them talking to AI. We have, if you think about the way that you're personally probably using it, if you're using AI to go and look up a recipe or where to go and search around, every Google result now has an AI component to it. So they're using AI. So the fear of are your members ready? Like just throw that out the window. Like that can be thrown away right now because you don't have to fear that because your members are ready. My 76-year-old dad, who English is his second language, is using AI to have conversations in Malayalam, right? Our native tongue. Like he's using it on his phone. So they're ready to use it, really at the end of the day, right? From my perspective, it's the idea of going back to what Shirley said, which is think about how your members are missing out on opportunities about the institution from a financial wellness perspective. How are you communicating? How are you being more proactive to actually reach out to them? Whether it's with voice is a whole different story, but there's so many opportunities to go ahead and make sure that the members are actually informed about what is available to them as a whole. The last point that I would just make is this is the first time in history, where AI is not behind a curtain. Anybody in this room, any consumer can go and actually interact with AI, right? Like there isn't this like, oh, well, I have to be this smart data geek that knows programming in order to go and use this. You can go do this literally on your phone today. And in fact, as a smaller company, we're less than 20 people in our organization. We are putting a mandate in place that every single hire has to be AI fluent person, and we're making our now current staff. We're providing enough training around this so that anybody can program anything at any time. You do not need to be a programmer. But it is on us as an organization to make sure that we're building up those tools for those groups of people. So like we see this as a where do you start is like, listen, we're all kind of figuring it out right now, to be just blunt about it. Like this is like a generational change that's going on right now. And we're all in the beginning stages of this. Again, I'll nerd out here and go back to maybe some of the old or younger folks don't realize this. We're in MS-DOS days, right? The green screen has popped up. We haven't even hit Windows 95 yet, right? So we're all figuring it out. What I would say is don't fear and wait for people to tell you what to go do. We're at the early stage just as long as you are. And we're all trying to go ahead and make sure we're utilizing this, but you've got to get something out to your members. You've got to have them start to give you feedback on what they like and don't like.
That's a good point. I'm curious because, and just to throw this out to real quick, Blesson and Aaron, and Shirley, I'll get back to you. Has any of the tone or questions changed? Like I would imagine 2 years ago when people would call you up or find your information and ask for information, they would ask like, hey, I heard you guys do X and X, and and now has any of the questions themselves or the tone shifted in how you're even opening up these conversations for partnership, et cetera?
Sure, I could take that. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Blessing for talking about DOS and Y2K and bringing back a lot of memories. And I can totally relate to that. Yeah, so 2 years ago, I think the first couple of questions were, how does AI help us with lending, or how does it affect our portfolio? Or we were doing a lot more educating and educational type of discussions than we do now. But guess what? Leadership across all credit unions have arrived, and they're more fluent in what that conversation is what we're talking about today. They've attended sessions at GAC, and they've read the guidance at the NCUAA. And so people are more educated than they were 2 years ago. But what has changed, I think, that because there's so much AI and noise, what I would call it, has made some folks be more skeptic, right, and more sharper, and so some folks out there make broad claims around what AI can do, and so it has made people, rightfully so, be more curious, and so we've had to spend a little bit more time early establishing the credibility of Zest and right and underwriting, and specifically what does this do versus what other things do, and so. But it's a different level of education, but it has elevated to the point where you talked about the social media scrolling and Instagram scrolling, which I'll be honest with you, Andy, on the weekends I'm a little guilty of that. But they have so much information thrown at them. It's okay. How do we decipher what's real, what can be deployed, what's important, and what can help them be successful? And so that's been the shift in the last couple of years.
Wow. Blessing, did you want to add anything on to that? Any different thoughts?
I mean, I would say the last 6 months have been, we went from a business that launched in 2024 as a QSO, where we were going out and proactively trying to get clients in the door, right? And trying to explain why there's going to be value. What shifted in the last 6 months is because of where people are playing with AI on their own in their own personal lives, meaning I'm talking about executives at credit unions. We're getting inbound traffic way, way higher. The second thing that we've seen too is, again, your colleagues are seeing value in this with the ones that are utilizing AI, and they're like, this is game changing. So it is the side of, hey, my neighbor credit union is doing this and they're seeing value within it. Has been a big, big push of, again, the adoption curve on this, right? And now the third thing that I would just say to that too is what's been really, really cool, and again, Aaron, this will age me a little bit too, is email marketing, right? It was like, hey, is this a thing? Is this thing going to actually be a real thing? And then you had to hire consultants to help you with email marketing, right? Now there's tools like MailChimp, Customer.io, SendGrid that are all out there where you can do email marketing tools and anybody can go and deploy it. What's been really, really interesting for us is now our clients are coming to us and saying, "Hey, don't just deploy this for me. I don't want your team to go do it. I want to go do it." So their adoption curve has just grown tremendously. So there's this graduation period, which is really cool as organizations are feeling more comfortable with this to be like, "Yeah, we want to do this because we're getting excited about it." So I would definitely say the environment has changed. I would say the last 6 months has been the real big shift, and I think there's another massive shift that's going to happen by the end of 2026.
Okay. Well, Shirley, I apologize. I'm looking at the time and I know we're getting up against it here. And there's two quick things that I want to do. One is I know that it's always on the mind, the ROI perspective. I was wondering if Aaron and Blesson, each of you could just take a minute each and share with us the ROI perspective in evaluation of that and how you've been helping your partners figure out what the ROI is on those tools as well. So Aaron, I'll go ahead and start with you.
Sure. So when it comes to ROI perspectives, I think it's all about how can we point with confidence what the return is that they're going to get. And I mentioned a little earlier around we want to make sure that we just don't throw out numbers out there and we take their own data, and we want to make sure that they can see a uptick in how many loans are approved and how we can lower the delinquency rates. And those two outcomes shouldn't sometimes come with a traditional score logically at the same time. you either approve more people or you take more risk. AI breaks all of that trade-offs. And so we're able to put something specifically together for each credit union to make sure before they take this big leap that they can see what the returns will be for the long term when they partner with someone like Zest.
How about you, Blessing?
Yeah, from an ROI perspective, our the math for us is kind of simple. One is this is a lot of net new things um that a lot of credit unions are doing because they aren't able to make calls, right? So we really concentrate our effort on, hey, you're not calling your members who've gone inactive 60, 90, 180 days. What if we were to prevent them from going into this treatment by making sure that they understand what their credit union can do? So the math on that is, hey, a member saved and a member adding a service. It's pretty simple math. That wasn't, listen, at Baxter, I had dormancy and reactivation and achievement, and we used to call it the onion because every time I would peel a layer back, I'd want to cry a little bit more because all I could do was send emails and mailers, right? So you're sending emails and mailers to members that are completely disengaged with you. Yeah, okay. Your likelihood of ROI on that is very, very low. Versus going back to Aaron's point, beyond the numbers, what we're discovering by doing use cases like that is we're also identifying why did the member go inactive? Was it because the onboarding process wasn't great or they got denied for a loan? They're telling you through a conversation why they've gone dormant without versus when you were sending a mailer, you can get that. You can get that through an email, right? So the ROI is yes, there's the traditional metrics, but we're also measuring out our NPS, our member loyalty numbers on the uptick. Are they staying at level or above that level with our outreaches too?
Sounds good. All right, so a couple quick things. Faith, I see your question. I will find a way to get some responses from the group to send to you. I just don't have the time to answer it specifically. The question is, how do you assess and mitigate AI literacy gaps in your org? So how do you train people up? I think it's going to be more than what we have time for. So we will make it our mission to get you the information that you need. And the last thing that I want to do, I always need to walk away with an I will statement because pre-commitment for people is a huge piece. And so we may not know where to start. So I want to open it up to the panelists for each of you to say, I will X, Y, and Z. If it was you out there, what would you indicate as your I will statement moving forward as your action item? So Shirley, can I start with you?
Yeah, I would say starting simple, stay mission focused. Do not let the technology lead. Let your members' needs lead you in these decisions.
Awesome. All right, Aaron, I will.
Wow, Shirley, it was great. I will not use AI as the only strategy. AI is an accelerant for a strategy that you already have. So it's your strategy to serve more members and communities and build more competitive products. AI can help you execute that faster and more accurate. And so if your strategy is unclear, AI won't fix it, but it will enhance whatever it is. So I will not use AI as a strategy. I will use it as a tool to enhance and grow.
Awesome. All right, Blessing, bring us home.
Yeah, my piece is I will think about generative AI as not just a benefit to my members, but a benefit to my team members as well, because the happier our team members are, the happier that our members are. So enabling them to have tools. So as what Faith was asking the question of how do we go ahead and bridge that the AI literacy gap. I think it's so important to make sure that you're servicing your team members so that they're able to go ahead and service members better. And I think you have, as leaders, a massive responsibility to make sure that they're jumping on board and utilizing those tools.
Awesome. All right, Danya, I feel like we roped the calf. We're 1 minute over from what I was trying to give you, but I just thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us today. Danya, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Andy. A fantastic conversation. I think Gary Perez said it best. You are truly an exceptional moderator. So thank you, Andy. Thank you, Shirley and Aaron and Blessing, for the incredible work that you're doing in your credit union and your organizations and sharing so many insights with our guests today. It was just a great conversation. So another round of applause for our panelists and moderator.